So there are lots of positives about separation anxiety. And the most important thing that you need to remember is that it's perfectly normal and it's the way that you handle it that is really important. You can't stop it. I don't know a child that hasn't gone through it. And so we're going to talk today about the signs of separation anxiety so you can identify it properly, and then what you can do about it in order to make it easier on you and on your little one and help them through that process. So what are the classic signs that your baby may be experiencing separation anxiety? They are likely to be more clingy. They're going to want to be picked up more often. When a stranger approaches, they will turn away or hide their head into your shoulder or into your neck because they don't want to look at unfamiliar people. They will cry when you leave the room, and they will probably be reluctant to be left alone at nap times and at bedtimes, and they might start to become more anxious in the lead up to those regular activities when they know that you are going to be leaving them. So separation anxiety usually starts to show itself at around 6 months of age and will normally start to lessen by the time your little one turns 1. So any time between then, or even on and off during that whole period, they're going to probably experience periods of separation anxiety. It's very important that you realise that every child develops differently and every child will experience separation anxiety at a different stage. Some will only go through it once and others will go through it on various occasions during the course of their early development. A lot of it will depend on what's happening in their lives. For instance, if they start daycare and when they start nursery, separation anxiety can kick back in again. If they're having issues at night, if they're having nightmares, that'll happen. But with babies, which is what we're concentrating on today, it's usually between 6 to 8 months that it starts. And by the time they turn 1, then it's usually beginning to fade and they're becoming better at being separated from you. The good news is that there are several things that you can do to help your baby with their separation anxiety and to ease them through the process. One of the first things that you should do is plan your exits. So if you're going to have to leave your baby, it's best to do so when they've been well fed and when they aren't tired. A baby that is feeling unwell or a baby that is tired is more likely to be clingy and to need your presence more. So planning when you actually leave your baby can really help in how the separation anxiety is handled. So another thing you need to remember is that you should never, ever sneak away. It's very tempting when you think your baby's occupied and looking elsewhere that you just sneak off and you leave them with whoever you're leaving them with and you think they'll be fine. But the reality is that they are going to feel even more insecure the next time they think you're going to go. A, because they don't know when you're going, and B, because you've not reassured them that you're coming back. So it's very important that no matter what happens, you say goodbye and you tell them that you will be coming back. And when you do come back, you have a big reunion. There's a big hug and happy smiles. And it's important that you stay confident, because if your baby picks up on your anxiety about them being left, they are more likely to be anxious themselves. So when you're at home, you can actually practice small departures and get them used to being away from you for very, very short periods of time. And then you gradually extend those. And this can be done by playing a simple peekaboo game where you can go down behind the sofa and you pop up so you're out of sight, literally for a few seconds. And you can gradually extend that to when they are safely playing. You can say, Mummy's going to the kitchen now, or Daddy's going to the kitchen now. I'll be back very shortly. You use the same words all the time. You literally leave for 30 seconds, probably to begin with, and then later on for a minute, and then for a minute and a half, and then 2 minutes, and then you return and you have a big reunion. So they practice very short periods of time that gradually get extended of you leaving them alone. Or you can leave them in the room with another person. So you've got a friend around or a relative, and you just say, I'm going to go to the kitchen to make a cup of coffee. I'll be back soon. You leave, you make the coffee. They might get upset, but it's also okay. You return and you make a big thing about returning. Therefore, they are practicing in a very safe environment with people they feel safe with when you leave the room and come back again. Because for them, it's all about learning that you're going to come back. Because separation anxiety really fundamentally comes from the fear that when you're out of their sight, they don't know when you're coming back. So they need to develop that trust that you actually will return. And so those short practices can really be helpful. Now, there's a little note here that if your baby is younger than 6 months old and you are just interested in what might happen when they develop separation anxiety, I have a little trick that I always use with very young babies, and it also helps with separation anxiety at night. And that is to put them in their crib when they are awake, not expected to sleep. So, for instance, you might need to just pop to the bathroom or make a quick phone call, put them in their crib with their mobile, lying on their backs, happily looking up, and you leave them for short periods of time. Now, the chances are at this age, separation anxiety is not going to kick in because they aren't old enough to feel the separation. But what it does teach them is that their crib is a safe place and that it is a place where they can play independently and they don't need you present. And this will really help as they grow, even when separation anxiety kicks in, because they have always been used to being left alone in their crib for short periods of time while they're awake to play independently. And sometimes they'll even fall asleep, but this is a really good practice to get into before your baby hits the separation anxiety milestone. Another thing you can do to help the separation anxiety is to leave something familiar with your baby. So they might have a favorite toy, or sometimes you can even leave an item of clothing that's got your smell on it, because they are very tuned to what you smell like. So you can leave it with them, or you can use a stuffed toy and say that the stuffed toy is going to stay with them and keep them company. So if your baby's between 6 and 12 months old and they're getting older and can understand more, then you can leave a favorite item so that item can be the comfort until you return. Also, it's important to remember that your baby will be okay. Separation anxiety is a sign that your baby has bonded with you. That is the most positive thing about separation anxiety. But when you do leave your baby, it's very important that you are positive and that you are confident, and give a very positive feel to the whole separation, because they're going to feed off you and how you are. So if you're anxious, they're going to be anxious. So it's very important that you feel confident about your leaving them with whoever you're leaving them with. You need to understand that they are going to be okay. Yes, they might get upset. Yes, you're going to be distraught because you can hear them crying when you've left them at daycare, or you've left them with a relative because you have to go to a doctor's appointment without them, or you've got to do something that they can't come along with. But you have to understand that they will be okay. And this is a perfectly normal part of their natural development, and that it's something that will pass. But as we've discussed, there are lots of things that you can do to help them practice being away from you. And it's all about the reunion as well, that you need to have a positive reunion at the end of it. Now, I will mention briefly that separation anxiety at night can be a slightly more difficult thing to handle. And if your baby's experiencing separation anxiety during the day, the chances are they are going to experience it at night as well. Because when they wake up at night and there are no distractions, they're immediately going to miss you and want you to be there. So be prepared for more nighttime waking, and you need to deal with it in the same way that you would deal with any nighttime waking. But I think providing a night light and a white noise machine can also help with your baby's separation anxiety. And it's important that you have that very stable bedtime routine and that you handle nighttime waking in a consistent manner. So continue to keep things low key, always offer them a cuddle and comfort, and then try and leave them settled. But be prepared for the fact that during separation anxiety, the chances of them self-soothing and going back to sleep without you having to pop in and reassure them that you are still around is very unlikely. But again, as the separation anxiety phase passes, they should settle back into their normal routine. So if you want to know more about separation anxiety at night, then I'll put a link in the description below to a post that I've written about that very subject, where you can go into more detail about how to handle night wakings when your baby's going through a separation anxiety phase. We are also going to be producing a video on separation anxiety and nighttime wakings. So don't forget to subscribe, and then you'll get a notification when that video is up and running. And as well as subscribing, don't forget to like and comment, because we really like to hear what you think of our content. And if you've got any ideas for any upcoming videos that you would like me to talk about, then please let us know. Thanks for listening.